I'm just saying, like being able to hear, God's voice, being able to hear is a real thing. See an example of this in 1 Kings chapter 17. In verse 13, this is when Elijah, there was a famine in the land. Now, how many of you realize that even though a famine may be in the land, it doesn't have to affect you, right? Yeah. Even though people are being challenged and going through, or there's a certain situation that's taking place in the land, we can avoid it simply by being obedient to God. And this is how Elijah found himself, where there was a famine in the land. And so Elijah, when the brook dried out and the supply, where God was meeting his need at the brook, when the brook dried up, God sent Elijah to Zarephath. And he says, I'm sending you to a widow woman, and I've commanded her to provide for you. I've commanded her to feed you. But, who's going to tell her? Who's going to tell her, the widow woman, that God has commanded you to provide for his servant? And so Elijah went to Zarephath, and he found her there by the well, picking up sticks so that she could go home, make something for her and her son, then they were going to die. And this brings us to point 2, because point 2 of this developing spiritual discipline, being able to develop the spiritual discipline to recognize the voice of God, to recognize his voice. In that situation, when I was dealing with this individual, I had to recognize the voice of God. And even though I heard the voice of God coming through the doctor who was explaining to us what was needed to provide for this individual, and I was saying, no, I had to recognize the voice of God saying to me, yes, yes, yes. And we have to be able to identify the voice of God. And just like when the Lord sent his prophets to the children of Israel, to Jerusalem, many times they killed them. They dismissed their prophetic word. They didn't receive Jeremiah's prophetic prophecy concerning them, and they threw Jeremiah in a pit. And many of the prophets who went to them, they didn't want to hear what Isaiah was saying. And they rejected many of the prophecies, and the prophecies were coming to deliver them. And so God sends his people to speak his word unto us, to deliver us, to help us get rid of the worry, to help us get rid of the fear, to help us dismiss those spirits that are not of God, that try to influence us in a negative way. But many times, when God comes, we say, Lord, I don't want to hear that. I'm not trying to hear that. Let's see 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 13. And she told Elijah, look, I'm going to go home. I'm just picking up a few sticks. I'm going to make something for me and my son. We're going to eat, and then we're going to die, and we're going to just die just like everybody else. Well, the Lord, now listen, the Lord sent his messenger, his servant, to her in order that her and her son won't die, so that they won't continue to suffer. But we have to be able to hear the voice of God. And another thing about the voice of God is that the Spirit of God, when the Spirit of God moved, then God said. Many times, the Spirit of God moved, then God said. But many times, we don't know that the Spirit of God is moving, because the Spirit of God, when it comes, is gentle. It's gentle. It's compassionate. It's not coming like hard, like rah, growling, angry, fussing, cursing, swearing. No, it's coming very peaceful. It's coming gentle. And we find this, look at what this says in 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 13. And Elijah said to her, do not fear, See that? Very gentle. Spirit. Do not fear. He told her to go make him something. Do not fear. He says, go and do as you have said. He said, go and do as you have said, but make me a small cake from it first. Make me a small cake from it first and bring it to me. And afterward, not only did he want her to make it, but he also wanted her to bring it to him. Now that sounds crazy. If I make it, at least you can come by and pick it up. He said, no, I want you to make it, then I want you to bring it to me. But now, she had to, her deliverance was in her being able to recognize that this was the voice of God. She could have dismissed it. And I want to say, others have dismissed it. Others have dismissed it. Listen. And so she says, make me a cake from it first and bring it to me. And afterward, make some for yourself and your son. And she obeyed. She recognized his voice as being the voice of God. And she did what he instructed her to do. And after that, her needs were met. She didn't have to struggle. She didn't have to worry because God provided for her. Now listen. And so discipline comes in the right spirit.